Mr. Duke and his judges familiar to start our quarterfinals off.
So game one on the play here. If Anthony does not have access to Supreme Verdict on turn 4, he can still fall behind.
Yes.
This matchup is good for Anthony game one, but he is very sensitive having Supreme Verdict on time.
Duke will start by attacking here for one in the air with the judges familiar. Here is a Tide Binder main, just a 2-2 in this particular matchup, as Duke does pass the turn back. Another Temple of Enlightenment here for Rofino. Gonna leave that card. We'll see where he leaves it as he does turn it off to the side. And now it's going to the bottom. So pass the turn back over to Duke. This is the crucial turn here, I think, for Reid. Does he have a card like Thassa or Nightveil Spectre? He's going to start by attacking for 3. Rofino's going to go down to 16. Heck, does he even have a third land? That's the big question. He does. It's a Mutavault. That's a perfect third land, and this is a Thassa. This is an ideal start for Reid.
This is about as good of an opening as Reid can ask for.
Here's the Tension Sphere to take care of that Thassa. So Rofino does have the answer. Pretty important there for Anthony, but Reid is off to a fantastic start here as we make our way through the 4th turn of our quarterfinals. Duke going to play an island to begin. 4 mana. This is
What
a
a
bind of
draw.
Thassa, yeah. That's going to allow Duke to come across for 3 points of damage. More importantly, it's going to draw him 2 cards.
What's really important about this now is that Reid can survive Supreme Verdict, especially with a Mutavault in play. He can fight that kind of card advantage battle now.
Huge draw there from Duke, because a Temple of Mystery will come down here for Rofino. 2 copies of Bind the Thassa in the main deck, certainly paying off right now, even though there is a Detention Sphere. So you see the power of D-Sphere. Players are cutting it for Planar Chaos, and that's certainly a decision that looks to be worth making if the field is full of Jund monsters. However, in this matchup, Detention Sphere plays a huge role for the blue decks.
Against Mono Blue Devotion, you know, they're not going to punish you.
Yep.
It is 3 mana remove a non-land permanent. And because Reid's trying to win the game with Thassa or Bident or so forth, that's really a great text box to have access to.
That is an attack for 5, and now Thassa number 2 is here. Rofino has been trying to keep up the entire time, but while he's been taking care of the big permanents, it's been the small ones like Judge's Familiar and Tidebinder Mage that have been getting the damage across. This is Supreme Verdict to clear everything up. You can't say Rofino's not drawing well. He certainly is.
Yeah, nothing lacking about Anthony's draw here.
No.
Just Reid's has been pretty close to ideal.
Temple of Plenty going to come down. Rofino going to take a look at the top card. He's going to leave that one on top, so now Duke is going to scry with the God of the Sea. That one goes to the bottom relatively quickly here for Reid. So time to take a draw. And we'll see what he does find here in just a moment.
This has been great stuff to see both players kind of bring their A game here as far as what their draws can produce.
Both with, you could argue, the best starts their deck can have.
Pretty close to it, yeah.
But now Reid is going to slow down here, trying to figure out what he can do to get these last 8 points of damage across. Pretty scary when your opponent keeps the scry on top. Gonna tap 4 mana. There's a Master of Waves. Not a very impressive one, only for 2. And Duke is gonna fire in here for 3 with the Mutavault.
Doesn't have to be that impressive here. Reid is now representing a lethal attack next turn, so Anthony has to respond.
Even lethal in the face of a card like Elspeth, too, due to Thassa. Kiora was the draw here for Rofino. He's going to go tapping some mana, and that is a Kiora. Let's see what this is going to do. That's going to shut down Mutavault. It is important for Rofino to have something here, as he, as you mentioned, is facing a lethal attack right now on the table.
2 main deck copies of Last Breath and a Cyclonic Rift all allow him to at least survive the turn.
Now, one thing Reid does not have in his main deck as he does contemplate the scry is counter magic. His spells: 1 Rapid Hybridization, 1 Cyclonic Rift, 2 Bind of Thassa, 2 copies of Domestication. Duke
Now,
giving this turn some pause.
Really contemplating this scry here.
Yeah.
You can see Reid, you know, he feels like he's ahead here, probably pretty close to winning, but there's a lot of ways to get tripped up from this spot.
Yeah. He's very, very close. He really, really is. But can he finish it off is the question. Because again, he's thinking long and hard about this scry. This might be the most important turn of the game here for Duke, as he will take that card. This is 3 mana. I have to imagine maybe a Nightveil Spectre, absolutely. An island, 4 mana. A Domestication on the Nightveil Spectre. That'll give him the necessary devotion to attack here with Thassa, and that is going to do it. A creative play there by Reid to get the job done, but that's exactly what it will do. And Reid Duke is going to win game number 1 here over Anthony Rofino. Mono Blue Devotion winning game 1 over Band Control, and that's huge in this matchup.
With the classic 4-mana, put this permanent into play to lock things up there.
Correct. The last card in Rofino's hand of relevance, he has Sphinx Revelation, but the card to make him not die the turn was Cyclonic Rift. The idea, of course, is to Cyclonic Rift the Master of Waves. Your Thassa can't kill me, and move forward accordingly. However, Duke making sure that he could have Devotion to kill him and have to force him to have 2 answers, which of course he didn't have. Yeah, that's why he's up a game.
Everything in that spot there, Azorius Charm, Last Breath, Cyclonic Rift, all answer either Master of Waves or Thassa. Reid finding the line of play that forced both Master and Thassa to be lethal, and on to game 2.
It's trivia time, my friends. First of many this week, and it'll be a 3-month giveaway. My friend Patrick here will have the rules, and I will have the first question.
All right, Cedric over here, he's going to ask you a question. You're going to tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random for 3 free months of Star City Games premium content. Don't worry about answering first, just correctly. And please keep in mind that this contest is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com, and Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with giveaways on its stream.
Pretty easy one here. We'll take a look at Reid Duke's Mono Blue Devotion deck list. He is playing 9 1-drops this weekend. 4 copies of Judge's Familiar, 4 copies of Cloudfin Raptor. We're used to those. The question, of course, is what is the singleton 1-drop in his deck? And if you can name it, hashtag the answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. Again, we'll announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round. So it's about accuracy, not speed. And 3 months for the winner.
I like that that 1 copy of this 1-drop is what goes for customization these days in Mono Blue Devotion. The list is very set in stone.
Yes, not many changes. As we will take a look at the sideboards here, we will start with Anthony Rofino's. I will take a look at, of course, 3 Mistcutter Hydras, a Banishing Light, a Blind Obedience, 3 Nyx Fleece Ram, a Cyclonic Rift, a Fated Retribution, 2 copies of Negate, and 3 copies of Bramaz, King of Oreskos. What do you like?
I definitely like the 3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra, though this is not an ideal matchup for them. They're really powerful for damage racing and going on the offensive against control decks. I still think they're fine in this matchup, but not nearly as powerful as they are against a deck like Esper or Blue-White. The additional copy of Banishing Light, I think, will come in as well. I think another Cyclonic Rift is a cheap way to break serve, is reasonable here. I think the negates are going to be good in this matchup, and I'm interested to see what he wants to do with Bramaz. It's easy for him to get outclassed on the ground. Bramaz can't necessarily attack or block in every board, but it is pound for pound more powerful than most of the threats that Reid brings to the table. And if backed up by Banishing Lights and Detention Spheres, has the potential to be powerful.
On the other side of things, we've got 2 Domestication, 3 Dissolve, 4 Gainsay, 2 Negate, a Rapid Hybridization, and 3 copies of Jace Architect of Thought. Even though Domestication did win Reid game number 1, I don't expect to see more of those coming in.
Well, the question is, does Anthony bring in his copies of Bramaz? Because Domestication's very good against that card.
This is true.
I still think it's probably worth cutting here. The counter spells, as you've alluded to before, very powerful in this matchup, and 3 copies of Jace Architect of Thought should help him also play a longer game.
Again, when we do have updates for you guys in other matches, we will certainly let you know. But that first game was a relatively quick one here between Duke and Rofino, so wouldn't be surprised if some of our other matches are lagging behind at this point. Again, Julian Wilds playing Jund Monsters against Gerard Fabiano playing Esper Control. Gerard Fabiano, I've just been told, did win game number 1 playing Esper. That is our backup match. If we do have time, we will move that way. Mike Segrist playing Mono Blue Devotion against Nicholas Vey playing Green White. I imagine Segrist will win that matchup as it's very favorable for him, but again, when we do have results, we'll let you know. And of course, Devin O'Donnell playing Mono Blue Devotion against Jared Betcher playing Black Red Devotion. We saw 2 Mono Blue Devotion decks make the top 8 last weekend in Portland. We've got 3 here this weekend.
And some piloted by some excellent players as well. I mean, this is the choice of the informed this weekend.
Segrist up a game and Devin O'Donnell up a game over Jared Betcher right now too. So Mono Blue both win their first game here as his top 8 is humming along.
Yeah, not surprising. Mono Blue Devotion is a pretty fast deck. I mean, the games generally do not go on for that many turns.
Interestingly enough, we mentioned that there are some really good players playing Mono Blue Devotion in Mike Segrist and Reid Duke. Devin O'Donnell impressed me with his play when he played against Ross Merriam.
He was sharp. Yeah. He was definitely sharp.
Definitely the lesser known of 3 Mono Blue Devotion players, but he's sitting here in our 3 seed, going toe-to-toe with the leading and likely to be Rookie of the Year in Jared Betcher.
Yeah. I feel kind of bad for the green-white players who have to run into Mono Blue Devotion.
Yeah, me too. It's
tough.
Horrible feeling.
When Andrew Schrett was making waves with that green-white deck initially, he was playing Mistcutter Hydras and Skylasher's main as a concession to the matchup. And this green-white list doesn't have nearly that much.
Shrout was kind of taking the matchup head on and still even admitted that it wasn't great, but he wanted to give himself the chance to win.
To me, it feels like Skylasher is the more important of the two to have for that matchup.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mistcutter is good against other decks as well, but Skylasher seems really important if you want to be beating Mono Blue Devotion.
Game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment between Duke and Rofino. Duke winning an impressive game 1, and as I said, kind of at the top, it was really important for Reid to win game 1 because the matchup changes, but I think changes at least more in his favor in game 2 with these counter spells.
Reid has a much stronger game plan against the card Supreme Verdict post-board. Game 1, a lot of his draws are just going to be, well, I have my stuff, I have to throw it in play and hope that it doesn't get all swept away. Post-board, Reid can execute a game plan to play a threat, back it up with some counter spells. If he wants to tap out on turn 4, it's going to be for things like Bident and Jace, things that aren't further playing into sweepers, but rather give him sources of card advantage that don't really care about creatures staying in play so much. Mutavaults also become very powerful for Reid post-board because Mutavaults supplemented by counterspells, really hard for control decks to beat that.
Rofino did mulligan relatively quickly there. So he's going to take a look at 6 cards now. He shrugs his shoulders, says that's good enough for me. So we are underway in game number 2, a Temple of Mystery. Will hopefully help undo that mulligan. Going to keep that card on top, and Duke will take a draw here. See if he's got a 1-drop to work his way with.
Anthony's list is pretty interesting to me because we've seen a lot of ban controlled lists pop up lately, but they're almost always some sort of, Sylvan Caryatid, Corsair Crewfix type of shell. This is a pure control deck.
Yeah, this is blue-white with a small splash of green. His Mutavault's going to come in here for 2. So Duke not putting anything on the table just yet. Rofino just going to play an island before passing the turn back. Rofino does have a copy of Supreme Verdict in hand, but things will change here. Supreme Verdict will oftentimes sweep up only 1 threat, maybe 2.
And it becomes so much less powerful post-board when Reid has Mutavault.
Yeah.
I wonder if Reid's contemplating testing the waters again.
A little bit scary when you know that your opponent does have access to Last Breath, 2 copies in the main deck. Duke can begin by playing an island, just pass the turn back. So representing a little bit of counter magic as Rofino will play an island and pass the turn back here. Duke going to take a draw. These are how the sideboarding games go from the Mono Blue Devotion side against man control. They're going to play a longer game. They know trying to play a short one does not work very well.
And post-board, Reid has the tools, and actually a ton of tools, to fight over Sphinx's Revelation. So he only has to focus on making his deck structurally sound against Supreme Verdict, because all the other stuff in Anthony's deck he has covered.
Judge's Familiar is going to come in. That's going to eat a Last Breath. If you're Duke, you're fine with that exchange.
As long as it's not a Mutavault.
Yeah. That time it is not. So Rofino makes that exchange, going to play a Temple of Enlightenment right away off the top of his deck. That top card's going to go to the bottom. And he will pass the turn back over to Duke. Duke will untap that lone island. Time to take a draw. Let's see what he finds on the 5th turn of this game. Looks like he may have picked up a copy of Master of Waves. That's not all that exciting.
Reid's been on such a tear the last couple of months with the Invitational and the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
It's funny, Ben Lundquist, a very good mutual friend of mine and Reid's, made an interesting observation to me. Reid doesn't have a lot of bluff to his game. He just figures out the perfect play and executes it. So Reid's going to be basically impossible to beat as long as Scrylands are legal and standard.
That's true.
Not that there's any Scrylands in his Blue Devotion list,
Yeah.
but that's the point. Reid's game is so well suited to maximizing Scrylands in a way that his opponents are not, that he's going to be tough to beat for the next year and change in standard.
Duke plays a Thassa, he gets dissolved. Now here's a copy of Bramaz. We weren't sure if Rofino was going to bring this in or not, but it looks like he has. You see Duke does have a Gainsay at the ready, but it can't counter that white spell.
It's a good way of taking the wind out of the sails of cards like Negate and Gainsay, just bringing in Bramaz. It punishes Reid a little bit for his post-board strategy of not trying to add to the board very much. Bramaz definitely warrants some sort of response from Reid.
The big question, of course, now is because this is going to force the action is, 1, did Duke bring in Domestication? And 2, does he have one right now? He's going to start by playing an island. This is 4 mana. And this is a Master of Waves. That'll get the thumbs up here from Rofino. But I believe Rofino does have a Last Breath, but not casting it just yet. Mistcutter Hydra the draw. So he's taking he's switching gears, taking an aggressive approach after board.
And it's much better suited than trying to sit on his heels with a bunch of spells that are going to run into counter spells.
Yep. I like this proactive approach here. Gonna come in with the Mistcutter Hydra. Burmaz will attack as well. There's the kitty cat. And everybody's coming into the red zone.
That allows for a fairly easy double block for Reid to take out Burmaz.
Hard to pass up.
But it's still not a long-term solution to Mistcutter Hydra.
Of course, Mutavault right now is a 3-3 due to Master of Waves giving it a little bit of a bonus. There's your block. Mutavault will bite the dust. The Cat Soldier will hang around. And 5 damage will come across, and the race is certainly on now.
I did not think that Anthony was going to be able to sculpt a game plan here where he was able to get on the front foot this early with Mistcutter Hydra. But with Reid kind of sitting on his hands a little bit here, trying to play around Supreme Verdict, he's opened the door for Anthony to take the aggressive role in the game.
Well, here's another Master of Waves from Duke. You saw him playing Nykthos. We'll see if that ends up mattering. The mana generation is there are 2 more elemental tokens. Reid gonna fire up the old Mutavault. It's time to get into the red zone here. Mutavault, of course, a 4-4. And that Master of Waves elemental token at 3-2 right now.
Now, with that said, even though Anthony has managed the game such that he's, you know, racing it on the offensive and got himself on the front foot here, Reid's deck is much better suited to that task, card for card.
If you want to play this sort of racing game, I think it's in favor of Duke. And there's a main phase Rev. So this will be for 3. So, another Mistcutter, an Island, and a Temple. Rofino will play that Temple. Take a look at the top card.
But now Mistcutter Hydra's firmly on defense.
Is it?
Well, if he attacks, I mean, there's a good chance he just dies on the way back, right?
So you take a look at the board here. Those elementals are 3 power creatures. That's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Mutavault's a 4. That's 17. Rofino's at 18. Now, he could take 17 and go to 1. Rofino also could have attacked that turn. Put Duke down to 13. He has another Mistcutter in his hand. Not sure if he's able to make the next Mistcutter big enough to make it, you know, lethal attack, but maybe getting in the red zone there?
Well, Reid still has a Mutavault back on defense.
I'm saying if he attacks with, if Rofino attacks with everybody, if attacks with his Mistcutter, and then Duke swings back with everyone, including the Mutavault, then he could play another Mistcutter and kill Reid.
Oh, my point is that Reid's very unlikely to just send Anthony to 1 and say go.
Sure.
If he's not attacking for lethal, the Mutavault probably gets held back on defense.
Duke gonna come in here. Gonna need one of these tokens, will Rofino. So 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points of damage will come across. Rofino's gonna go down to 8.
And if he's blocking like that and not putting in front of Master Waves, that to me says he's casting Supreme Verdict next turn. That's his plan.
Burmaz was the draw. Here's an Island. In for 5 we go. Reid shrugged his shoulders, says, sure, I'll go to 13. Does feel like a verdict, and it is. See how much white mana he has left after this.
I don't think he has enough to follow up with the Burmaz that's in his hand.
That's what I was curious about.
And this is sort of my point about Mistcutter Hydra being a little troubled for Anthony post-board. It's not like it's that bad in the matchup, but it's only powerful once he can get on the front foot. And even the way the game was shaping up with Reid taking a slow pace, Reid was still able to force the board to the point where Anthony had a Supreme Verdict, even though Reid didn't really play that many cards. It was just 2 copies of Master Waves, basically.
Frostburn Weird will be how Duke does rebuild. See if he wants to add anything else to the board. Looks like he's got some interest in getting in here with Mutavault. And fire that up. Rofino can't last breath that quick enough. The question, of course, is does Reid have a negate for this? He does not.
So this is another spot where Burmaz could potentially be potent.
So the backup Mutavault that Duke did play is 3rd of the game. We could also see Rofino just say, all right, Mistcutter Hydra for some large number.
Well, Reid gets a crack back for a lot. I mean, it's 5 damage on board. I do not think Rofino's in a position to kill Reid with 2 Mistcutter Hydra hits.
Well, he's going to move in and go for it. I don't know how much this is going to be for. It's going to be for a lot. I mean, this is 7 or 8.
Well, 7 and 8 are both short of lethal in 2 turns.
There's a dissolve. And Reid doing that just to scry. Reid knowing, yeah, I can't counter it. I know that.
And Reid might not be able to leave up this 3 mana for the rest of the game. He might be occupied doing other things. So looks a little weird on the surface, but sometimes you have to put Devastication on your own Night Veil Spectre. Sometimes you got to be dissolving Mistcutter Hydras. This is just what it's like to be the Duke.
Can't be too proud.
No.
Reid giving this card a long look right now. Quick update for you guys here as Reid does finish this scry. Mike Segrist does win his match 2-0 over Nicholas Vey. Vey with a very poor matchup. Green, white against mono blue, and Segrist able to move on rather easily.
Not a lot to be done there.
This is an attack for 7. Duke is going to go down to 10. Jared Betcher does tie things up against Devin O'Donnell. They are headed into a 3rd game as Duke is tapping mana right now. A Jace, Architect of Thought, will tick down. Take a look at a couple of cards. Night Veil Spectre, the 4th Mutavault, and an Island. So yeah, Rofino does want to split these.
Feels like Mutavault's got to be the best card in this pile. If Rofino's trying to win with Mistcutter Hydra. And that's a very quick split.
Mutavault versus.
Now I'm curious to see, does Reid play around the 3rd copy of Mistcutter Hydra? There's 1 in play, 1 in the graveyard, 1 hanging out in Anthony's deck. Is Reid willing to concede to that card to try to be better suited against everything else that Rofino brings to the table? Because he can't just go into pure damage race mode. He can take this Mutavault, he can hit for 3 points this turn, represent lethal next turn.
Yeah.
But if he takes that approach, he is almost certainly dead to the last Mistcutter Hydra.
And there is the Mutavault. Here comes the Frostburn Weird. No pump. Maybe a little bit surprising there.
That, I would imagine, well, there's a lot of tricks it could be. Because it could be rapid hybridization, it could be a counterspell, it could be a number of cards.
In for 7 more we go. That's the easy part of Rofino's turn, and Duke is going to take it. There's a Plains. This is a Bramaz. Duke looks at the Dissolve in his hand that he cannot cast. Says that's fine. Again, Reid has been sitting on a gain save for some time during this game. Has not been able to find a spot to cast it. Duke will take a draw here. Does know the card that he found. Does still have the time to activate Jace if he'd like.
Very interesting to see the way that Anthony's approached this matchup post-board. Looks like Reid is floating some mana here and activating Jace while he still has access to the appropriate amount of devotion.
Yeah, gives him +1 mana.
Yeah.
Nice play there. Biden of Thoughts on its own against Night Veil Spectre and Judge's Familiar. Again, Reid right now with 4 blue mana floating. Looks like he's going to take the creatures and put the Biden to the bottom of the deck. There is Judge's Familiar. And there is Night Veil Spectre. And all Duke can do is pass the turn back here. So Rofino will untap. Add a card to his hand. It's a Temple of Plenty, but he puts it into play rather quickly.
Getting some flyers into play is really important because Anthony's close to locking up the ground here.
Looks like Rofino with no interest in attacking with Bramaz. And Reid says, let me take a look at the graveyard here before I make my decision. It is a lethal attack, so you have to imagine we're still blocking here in a second.
Yeah.
Mutavault. Showing its versatility. We'll step in front of the Mistcutter Hydra. All Rofino can do is pass the turn back. Rofino's card in his hand right now is a negate.
So Reid is in a position here to attack in the air, chump again.
Maybe he finds something nice with Nightveil Spectre.
Very possible. He's also got 4 cards in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's really only the Mistcutter Hydra that's going to kill him from the spot, it feels like. The Ramaz, probably any other draw except the Mistcutter Hydra in Anthony's deck, none of this really matters.
Frostburn, we're doing some nice work here. In come the Flyers. Rofino will take 3. He's going to go down to 4. Close game here. Here's the trigger.
Oh, wow. There was the kill.
Yeah. And you saw Rofino leave that on top of his deck very quickly from the Temple of Plenty. Makes sense, of course.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a world where Reid holds back the Nightveil Spectre and you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And Reid can't cast it also, so it's a dead draw for him.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Rofino with a Jace off the top. All right.
Well, this is going to probably unlock some counterspell out of Reid's hand.
Yeah. Seems like a card worth fighting over. Reid gonna look like he's gonna add a bunch of blue mana here with Nykthos. So it's time for Dissolve. That'll take care of the Jace. Rofino with Negate in his hand does not choose to fight over it. Looking for a better spot for his Negate. Duke. Looks like he's going to scry that card to the bottom.
Surprising that Anthony wouldn't want to fight over the Jace here because it cuts Reid's clock down so dramatically.
And when you plus that thing, makes the Judge Familiar irrelevant. Nightveil Spectre hitting for much less.
It cuts his amount of power by 1/3.
Duke does fire up the Mutavault. And are we looking at a lethal attack here? If Rofino doesn't have anything, there's your blocks. Excuse me, Rufino's attacking. I apologize. So yeah, here's your blocks. Mutavault's going to go in front of Mistcutter Hydra, of course. Ramaz will be blocked by Frostburn, weird. So there that goes. 1 damage will come across. Duke will go down to 2. And just have Reid have a way to win the game right now.
I guess Anthony wants to keep the negate in case of Cyclonic Rift.
Domestication as well.
Yeah, those are reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable cards to be worried about here. Maybe he's saying, I don't think you can kill me except with one of your haymakers, so the Jace doesn't matter enough.
In comes Nightveil. Trigger, this could be a big reveal. What's this? It's a Supreme Verdict. And he
Can't make double white, right?
Yeah, I'm making sure too. He cannot. He's got Judge's Familiar to reduce 1 white off of Nykthos. Let's see where to play a Judge's Familiar. Get a little creative that way.
Could have been big if Reid found green mana there.
Yeah, deploy the Mistcutter.
Just have a blocker, yep.
Rofino going to quickly draw his card. He's attacking with everybody, and that is going to do it. Anthony Rofino is able to win game number 2 off the back of a large Mistcutter Hydra. You see him take a deep breath getting out of that game alive. And Reid, Duke, and Anthony Rofino are headed to a 3rd game.
It's tough even when you have some of your best tools and your draw is good. When you're playing a player like Reid, it's always, you still, when, you know, lethal damage is coming across, you still are finally like, oh, okay, good.
Okay,
all right.
I got it. All
I
right.
killed him. All right, good.
A 3rd game is where we're headed. Both players taking a look. Well, Reid definitely is. We'll see if Rofino heads back to his sideboard. Of course, you do see it on the screen. I don't think much is going to change here for either one.
Well, now the question becomes, does Reid want to bring in not all 4 copies of Domestication, but is 2 reasonable?
Domestication would have been good at any point that game.
You know, if Anthony's going to be tapping out for Ramaz, it's a threat that can win the game on its own, and it's something that gives him protection against Mistcutter Hydra in a number of respects. Again, I don't think the full 4 that Reid has access to is anywhere close to being in play, but 1 or 2 copies I think could reasonably come in.
In case you forgot, I'm here to remind you, Jared Betcher doesn't like to lose.
Nope.
Nah, he's not a big fan of that. wins again, defeats Devin O'Donnell 2-1. He is moving on to play the winner of this match tomorrow morning. And Gerard Fabiano does win at 2-0 as well. I thought that'd be a tough matchup for Gerard.
I thought it would be too.
But his proactive approach with his Esper deck, able to take down Julian Wilds. So we've got Fabiano versus Segrist on one side and potential for Betcher versus Duke on the other.
That has to be our best standard semifinal of all time if that's what's going on here.
Whew.
The current rookie of the year, two players who, if not, I'm not sure if Reid already has 150 pro points, but there's no doubt he's going to be Hall of Fame eligible, and in my mind, in the Hall of Fame when he's available for the ballot. And the most recent Grand Prix champion. So that's a pretty solid top 4 of a standard open.
I would say that I'm using worst very lightly here. The worst player, if Reid makes it through, is Mike Segrist. He's the one with probably the least accomplishments.
Yeah.
Between Betcher becoming Rookie of the Year and he's having, a 10-month run unlike anything we've ever seen. Reid, who is leading the pro player point race right now. You've got Segrist, who just won the last Grand Prix, and Fabiano, who has 2 Grand Prix titles to his name, and a bevy of other accomplishments.
It's very rare that I think that the worst player in our top 4 is a lot better than I am.
Yes.
That's generally speaking not a thing.
Yeah.
But here we are. Segrist Fabiano, Jared Betcher, and the winner of this.
Betcher, of course, playing Black-Red Devotion. Fabiano on Esper Control. Segrist on Mono Blue. And, of course, Rofino versus Duke. See who wins it.
And Rofino's got his corner there.
Hey, where's the Peach Garden Oath? Huh? Huey, Owen? Where's the support, guys?
What is this all about?
Watching at home is not enough.
Anthony's got a man in his corner. You know?
Yeah. It's 5-on-1. It's 5 versus the Duke.
Right.
Maybe 6. It's mounting quickly. There's a 7th guy.
Well,
Here comes an 8th.
the Duke does have his legions of supporters all around the world.
This is true. The Duke and his millions.
Yeah. Yeah, and Reid's, I know I mentioned this earlier here, but Reid's Pro Tour competitor shirt is just so charming here.
Let's just read through and through.
Dude, we get it.
The Pro Tour. That's neat. How'd you do? 3rd. Okay. That's cool. I wonder what Pro Tour that's from, actually. That's what I want to know.
I don't recognize that. That looks like one of the older ones.
That is definitely one of the older ones. The newer ones are much different. They have, planeswalkers on them and stuff. That's an old Pro Tour short. The only reason I'm interested is because I might have been at the same Pro Tour as Sid with that one. That may have been one of his first and one of my last.
Yeah. now the shirts are a little bit stylized.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they looked like shirts that you would wear to the gym or on laundry day. But now they're, they have graphics on them and all that stuff.
Reid with a pretty quick start here. A couple copies of the judges familiar to get things underway. The plan here, of course, is to get out in front a little bit and then counter some spells.
Yeah. And this is the kind of draw that Reid can have where a card like Miskara Hydra struggles to be relevant, even though it says Pro Blue against a deck of nothing but blue creatures.
Here come the birdies. Rofino's going to go down to 17. See what Duke wants to play in his 3rd turn. Just going to play a Mutavault. But that one's important, as Rofino will play an island, see if there's maybe a detention sphere hanging out here, and there is. Does Duke have a counter spell? He's giving this one a pretty hard look. I can see the dissolve.
Can't sack a judge's familiar to,
No. No.
It's both of them or a counter spell?
It's a counter spell. It's a gainsay. Does not look thrilled to use that gainsay on detention sphere to protect those judges' familiars, but he may just have to.
Well, without it, he doesn't have a lot of pressure. And then Miskara Hydra starts becoming a card he really has to concern himself with.
Yep. Duke with the 4th land. This is an important turn. What is this? It's a Jace, okay. If you're Anthony, you are so happy that's not a Biden.
Biden there is a disaster.
Still a pretty good Jace flip. Specters and an island. A Spectre and an island will go to Duke's grip. That Spectre will go to the bottom. Here come the judges' familiars.
And this is the game plan in action. Now Reid has set up the game where he does not care if this is Supreme Verdict.
Yep.
He got untap with his Jace. He has a Mutavault in play. He has a land and Nightveil Spectre ready to go.
Yep. He can start chipping away now, bobbing and weaving, as it were. Here's a Banishing Light. Rofino, does he have a 4th land? Looks like he does. There's a Temple of Enlightenment. Does get to scry. Doesn't look too thrilled at what he's looking at. He's going to leave it on top, pass the turn back over to Duke, who will untap those 4 lands and 2 Judges Familiars. Pick up a new card. So move to his 5th turn. Again, it looked like he had a Dissolve in his hand. It may have been a copy of Domestication. Both those cards good after sideboard.
It's always interesting when deck lists are public when you see things like someone has Ramaz and someone has Domestication. Archangel of Thune and Domestication also commonly has this cat and mouse game to it. Well, you lose if it sticks, but I lose if you take it. We'll see how the cards line up.
Beautiful. Kind of fire in there. Make it a 4-point attack. And Reid will pass the turn back. Rofino kept the Jace on top. And he puts the Mutavault directly into play.
But now Mistcutter Hydra is not really doing a ton for Rofino, and everything else compels him to play in the counter spells. It's a tough squeeze.
Looks like he's just going to pass the turn back. So Duke will untap, take a draw. What's he want to do on his 6th turn? Is it just Mutavault and Friends again? Just Judges Familiars this time. Rofino very quickly brings Azorius Charm forward, and there is Azorius Charm. Is Reid okay with this?
Reid struggled so much to cash in his gainsays last game that perhaps he's just going to fire off on the first blue spell that seems relevant.
Yeah, that's what we saw him do with the D-Sphere. He didn't want to very much, but then he did fire it off. So he's going to let Azorius Charm resolve and play Replacement Judge Player. How about that? Rofino gives that the thumbs up as he does draw a card for the turn. It's a, looks like maybe a Hallowed Fountain. Yeah, that's what that is. And you can see the squeeze that you get put in here by Monolith or sideboard. It's funny because, like, oh, you're just attacking me, you're chipping away with Judges Familiars, but eventually you have to do something.
Yep. And last turn, you know, it sounds like it's not very much, but nothing too bad happened to Reid. He got in for a point of damage. Anthony used one of his cheaper resources. It's all about trying to set the stage to eventually kill Anthony, never exposing yourself into too many sweepers.
A revelation for, looks like 1.
Oh, I suspect Reid will let that one go.
That's fine.
All right, yeah, you got it.
Temple of Plenty among the cards drawn. The Temple will come into play. That top card stays on top for
Is
Rofino.
Is that the first time you've seen a Judge's Familiar be able to counter a Revelation and not? That's another first-time thing that Reid is bringing to the table.
Yeah,
in
that's
this
a maybe.
tournament.
That's definitely a maybe there. Here's a Jace. This one is, I believe, worth fighting over if Reid does have a counter spell.
It's Reid's, all of his pressure goes.
Yeah.
Right now, Jace +1 is really tough on Reid, so this feels worth some sort of battle.
And there's Negate. Reid going to win that battle pretty easily. This is where the counter matchup becomes so deadly. You get out ahead just a touch, and you counter what you feel is relevant.
And if this is game 1, that Jace in this spot is really hard for Reid to beat. But now, trivial for Reid to shove that card aside.
Duke looking through things slow. We know he has Judge's Familiar in his hand. We know about Nightveil Spectre that he's had for some time. You see the Mutavault in the row. He let a very small Sphinx's Revelation resolve, so he doesn't have to really concern himself about that too much.
The smallest of revelations.
Yeah. In for 2. Rofino's going to go down to 7, and Duke just says, go ahead again.
These Judges Familiars must be exhausted. I mean, they've just been, since turn 1, you know, just...
There's a Supreme Verdict after Temple of Plenty left the top card on top. So away go the birds. Reid says, I will make you pay 1.
Sees every line of play.
He really does. He really can't surprise you. So now Reid has to commit something else to the table after playing that game of cat and mouse. Supreme Verdict finally showed up.
And he can't play that slowly here or sit on these counterspells all day because Anthony has access to Mistcutter Hydra. He can shift the game very quickly.
Rofino draws a card. There's a Mutavault. And I think we're about to shift the game very quickly.
And that other Mutavault, really important draw here. Though I'm surprised Anthony wouldn't just max out on dumping into the Mistcutter Hydra.
I'm a little bit surprised by that as well. It depends on how it lines up with the clock. But, you know, if he could have made this an 8-8, for example, or even a 7, it's a 3-turner. If it's a 6, it's a 4-turn clock.
And you have to imagine Reid's going to be able to cobble together answers to the Mutavaults. I mean, he has cards in his hand. You know there's still a Nightveil Spectre hanging out over there. So trying to get too aggro with the Mutavaults doesn't seem worth a lot.
And for 6 we go.
Oh, he wants to leave his Mutavault back on D.
Yeah, that's what I imagine for the other Mutavault.
Sure.
It just, of course, it just depends on how things line up with the clock, because if you're attacking for 6, that's 6, 12, 18 lethal, as opposed to if it's 7, for example, 7, 14, 21. You know, it's a full other turn. Judgment is going to come in here. Rofino's going to untap and take a draw.
Yeah, particularly when Reid has the ability to chump block at least once with the Mutavault in play. It's tough to give up those other 2 points.
Temple of Mystery puts the top card to the bottom very quickly for Rofino. Rofino organizing his mana here. Only has 1 card left in his hand, so this is very reminiscent of what we saw in the last game. It's all on you, Mistcutter Hydra, to help get the job done. Duke is going to untap. 8 to 6 are the totals. Duke a little bit ahead.
Well, it's 2 turns versus 2 turns, but Reid does have a chump blocker.
And Bramaz is the card that comes off the top from the Nightveil Spectre.
That's a card that would have lended no assistance to Anthony.
If you're Anthony, you're almost happy that that's what got turned over.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this game is not going to be about Bramaz. Can Anthony answer these flyers? Can Reid stave off this Mistcutter Hydra long enough?
Reid with a lot of cards in his hand. Rofino only has 1. He'll pass the turn back. Rofino will pick up a card. It's a Temple of Plenty. Can't make out the other card in his hand too well, but he will fire up these Mutavaults. He's going to present what looks to be a lethal attack. Reid's going to fire up his Mutavault. He would like to block. That will work. Duke's going to go down to 4. There's a Temple of Plenty. Top card goes to the bottom here for Rofino.
An exact lethal for Reid. Is there any other way for him to do it?
Draws a card, plays the island, coming across, and that is going to do it. Reid Duke is going to win this match over Anthony Rofino. Mono Blue Devotion taking down Band Control, and Duke has not lost the match yet.
And that sets the stage for tomorrow.
Whoo boy.
Against the prohibitive favorite to win Rookie of the Year, the man who dispatched him in the top 8 of the Invitational last month, Reid Duke, Jared Betcher.
Can you say rematch?
It's going to be a good one. Not the same decks. Reid was playing Planar Cleansing Control. This time he's Mono Blue Devotion. Jared